All right, welcome back. This is episode 2 of my podcast, Legacy Building Your Kingdom. I'm Rudy Knapp. Um, I'm excited about being here today, recording this. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, continuing this podcast, continue to grow as a person. Big part of growth and a big part of bettering myself. So, again, building your kingdom, a little recap of what we talked about last week in our introduction. Building your kingdom is you growing, you bettering yourself in every aspect of your life, and continue to work on yourself throughout life. Your kingdom is represented by the people that are part of your life, the ones that you accept into your kingdom, your experiences, the acquaintances that you have, your career, all the things that are involved in your life that you allow in. Blocking out all that negative, blocking out all the things that, cause you harm. So we have to continue to work on this kingdom. We have to continue to build our legacy, as we put it, so that we can continue to go ahead and see how we leave this world with those people that we love, the people that are part of our kingdom. Continuing on from this, understanding that we are important. As people, we are important for our own lives, we're important for those around us, and we bring a lot to the table. And so we have to start thinking that way about ourselves. My daughter told me recently that she's working on, talking about positive things about herself, talking herself up, which is a huge, huge bonus to understand that your 8th grader is now understanding that that negativity can bring us down. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, too. So, today's topic, I struggled with what order I want to continue my podcast with and what the major topics would be. And I wanted to go right into a controversial topic, but we're going to talk about that at another time. So I decided to settle on this one, which I believe is a great topic to be my episode 2. It really sets a guideline for how we approach this concept of building your kingdom. It truly is the basis of taking back how we control ourselves, the way we think, choosing our path, and finding positive in every situation. This topic I like to call empowerment. We've all heard the word empowerment, but empowerment is the process of becoming stronger and confident, especially controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. So, how do we build this empowerment in ourselves? How do we use this empowerment to help us to better our lives? We're going to talk about this today. We're going to go into some details with this, but first and foremost, we must empower our own lives. We must take ownership of our lives and realize that it's our lives that are going to affect those people around us. So once we empower ourselves, then we start empowering our kingdoms. This empowerment leads to giving people, your kingdom, the authority, power, and confidence to act, to make decisions, and take control of their own lives, achieve their goals, realize their potential, but ultimately, we are going to build them up. That's a huge part of growth. It's a huge part of being part of your world. You want the people around you to have the same empowerment for their own lives, because when they're empowered, they bring wealth to your life as well. It's just like you bring wealth to their life. This is that love. This is that, commitment to understanding they are important and you're important to them as well. So building you up, right? That's a big part of this. One thing that I think is very, very underrated, one of the most underrated words in life, is this word called confidence. So you just heard it in the definition here of empowerment. Confidence is so underrated. The word confidence also means to believe in yourself, to be vulnerable, to fail, and get back up without reservation that you can't do it, right? That you will always have this belief that you can do it, right? You're going to walk with pride in who you are. This is confidence. You're going to be real about yourself and what you believe in, not what the world around you is telling you, not what every commercial tells you to do, and not what every person around there or society's norms tell you to do, but you're going to be yourself, right? It's your life, it's your way, it's your thoughts, it's your beliefs over what others have ingrained in you, which is what we call programmed you, which we'll get into later about what that means. But empowerment, control your mind. You're going to choose the way you think about every decision. So really important word, confidence. I believe that I try to instill that into my own children. I think that understanding to have a confidence in yourself, even when you fail, to have a confidence in who you are, what your character is, and how you will continue to use this confidence to help your abilities to complete tasks, to do things that are difficult. But have this confidence within you. You know who you are. Everybody understands that we have things to improve about ourselves. We're not necessarily confident in every aspect of our life, but how do we go about trying to build this confidence? It also comes back with this empowerment. I need confidence to walk with understanding that I live life the way I live life. I'm not going to let someone else dictate that. I have my values, and I will always stick by my values because they're most important to me and who I am. Those are some things that I think some people will disregard to benefit other people. Well, if you're going to empower yourself, you need to start with understanding confidence. So we'll move on to talking a little bit about more what that means to us, but let's continue to talk about this idea of empowerment. How do we empower ourselves in a world that has so much negative energy? This world is filled with negative energy. So how do we empower ourselves in this world? How do we fight against so many things that are against us? A lot of us feel that. How do we fight against our own narratives in our brain that tells us to believe the worst case scenario, or just that others have bad intentions, or that something will go wrong, or whatever that we make up in our brain? How do we fight against this if we're trying to build this empowerment within ourselves? There is negative energy all around us. I believe in that. I believe that this world is created with an overall sense of negative energy. It exists. Negative energy is there. Negative things are going to happen. Bad things do happen in this world. But what are we going to do in our lives to still live, to block out this concept of that's going to control us, and take ownership of our own lives and make the best of it? How do we better our lives without focusing on this negative part? There's so many things that come into play when we talk about control. We'll get into that at some point. But we have to realize that we control our own thoughts. We control our own way of thinking, our own mindset, our own beliefs. We control those things, but it's a very difficult topic. It's a very difficult thing to say because we see the influence that is upon us that keeps us from controlling our own thoughts. And we'll get into that in a second, but here's a story I want to tell you. I kind of live my life by this. I think this story is a really important one for life lessons, and it really piggybacks on exactly what I've been talking about. I want to tell you the story of the two wolves. It's definitely a guideline that I live my life by, so I think it's very important for everyone to hear this story. So there are these two wolves, and they are upset with each other, and they're fighting each other. Well, the one wolf, he represents light and hope. And the other wolf, he represents darkness and despair. Who wins this fight? So I want you to take a second and think about that. What would you choose? Who would you choose to win that fight? You have light and hope, and you have darkness and despair. Who wins that fight? Pretty controversial discussion here. But the answer is this. There's a clear-cut answer. I've heard many people tell me as I preach this, well, light and hope. And, you kind of see an insight to who those people are that say light and hope. Well, yeah, they're going to win. And then I hear darkness and despair because there's so much negativity in this world, so darkness and despair is going to win. Very interesting to think about it that way, too, because there is a lot of negative energy in this world, and there are things that are constantly fighting against us, like we talked about. So who wins this fight? Well, the answer comes back to whoever you feed. So you can look at this literally and you can look at this figuratively. If you fed a wolf a meal, you fed it food, you continue to give it energy, it's going to win. So if you decide to feed the hope, the light, that wolf is going to win because it's got nutrition, it's got energy, it's ready to fight. The other one doesn't. If you feed darkness and despair, they're going to win. Same reasons, right? So if you look at it literally, that would make a lot of sense to us. But if you look at it figuratively, every decision that happens in our life, we listen to, or every event, every circumstance that happens in our life, we have an opportunity to choose light and hope over darkness and despair. We have a choice. It's our brain. We choose it. And what we're going to find out later is this whole concept of being programmed. And what I want to say about that is that if you had the opportunity, knowingly had that opportunity, you know, majority of people, I don't want to say everybody, but I would hope everybody, would choose, you know, light and hope. They want that positive. They want this to be something successful. They want to see a good in everything in the world. I would hope, and I would hope that most people have that in their heart. So if you consciously understood that, yeah, I want light and hope. I want to see that prevail. I want to see the positive in everything. And there actually is a positive in every single thing that happens in this world. It could be the unthinkable, the worst things in life that can happen, but there is a positive. It's a concept that we have to intentionally choose. We can choose the negativity because that's an easy way to look at it. It's very easy to see something bad happen and really focus on that negative. It's very easy to do. It's the easy way out. You know, most things in life, we choose the easy way out. We want something handed to us. We want a result without putting in the work. But the process of everything you do in life is where you really, really grow and you learn. It's a process. I teach this to my son in sports. I teach this throughout my life. It's a process that really, really will get you from where you were to where you want to be. Failure is part of that process. And when we start understanding that we're not giving anything in this life, nobody's giving us anything. Do people get breaks? Sure. But are you getting anything out of that? You know, we go through a process in this life, and it's hardship because you're learning from that hardship. You know, it's a struggle. Let's just go for a fact of losing weight. I mean, I've been somebody that's been a big guy before, and I've lost a lot of weight, and I've gotten shape, and I've gone back and forth in my life. I'm now here to stay. I won't ever let that happen to me again because it's my way of thinking now. Now I have changed as a person, and the mindset is to change your life and how you think. Think about that process. I mean, how many people have gone out and bought get skinny real quick by having a pill or, you know, taking a supplement or doing something like, you know, whatever this new fad is where you take Ozempic or whatever it is called. These are things that can relatively hurt your body in the long run, and we don't care about that. We want immediate results. So people take it. And I understand some situations where some people need things. But ultimately, what would you feel about yourself compared to just taking a shot if you actually went to the gym every single day, if you actually put in the work and you ate right every single day, and you saw results exist over a period of time, and you put in the heartache and the sweat and the tears and the getting up early and the fight to change what you felt about yourself. Again, confidence in yourself. You know, there's some hardship in this life that people have to realize, and I know it's unpopular and some people don't want to discuss this, but there is a truth to a lot of things. And it's not about being shallow, I promise you that. Again, I've been a big guy. I've been looked at differently when I walk into a room. You know, when you're the biggest guy in a room, people will look at you differently and they'll treat you differently. And there's a hard truth to that. It hurts. It hurts to talk about. But it's the truth. So I don't live my life that way. You know, whether you're 300 pounds or you're, you know, 170 pounds and ripped muscle, I'm not looking at you that differently. But it does exist in this world. Society looks at you differently in some things. One of the things they'll look at you is you represent a certain way. Now, again, this isn't from my mindset because I don't believe in this. But I think there are a lot of people that do. They believe in sloppy, that you're lazy if you're out of shape. And they believe in, hey, this person is dedicated, this person puts in work, and this person, looks a certain way, so maybe they're the right person for the job. Or maybe they're the person that, we want to choose for whatever reason. Now, keep that in mind. Does it make it right? No. I believe there's people in this world that can do any job, and it doesn't matter if you're in shape or not. But that being said, I believe health is a very important aspect of life. There's a lot of reasons why we push for our health, and it's not just for us to look good. And I think a lot of people want that, which is definitely a bonus. People want to look good because it builds confidence in yourself. It builds how you walk in a room. It builds that, that demeanor about yourself, that you did something hard and you created a change. That's what I'm talking about when we start talking about choosing the light over choosing the darkness. You want to feel through that process that you chose the right thing. You put in the work. You put in that work in the gym. You put in that work mentally, or went back to school. You worked for that degree. You chose that path that's going to be hard work, which also pays off and creates an intrinsic value within inside you that can't be taken away from. You can take everything from anybody in life, but you cannot take their intrinsic value of what they've accomplished. And that's such a powerful thing to me. I believe in intrinsic value. I believe that there is an intrinsic and extrinsic value throughout this world that has to be balanced. Intrinsically more important than extrinsically, if you ask me. Extrinsically is what we live this life by. Money, that's extrinsic value. I work a job to get money. Intrinsically, I get to take care of my children. I get to take care of my responsibilities, right? I get certain things that make me feel good about myself because I put in the work to receive that. That's the good feeling inside yourself. But anyway, let's get back to this concept here. Understanding that, you choosing this positive, even when it hurts, this is very, very difficult topic because a lot of people don't want to see that when something horrible happens in your life, something dreadful happens, how can you find a positive in dreadful things that happen? So I'm going to open up a little bit. I'm going to be a little vulnerable. It's hard for me. It's very difficult to have a conversation about your personal life when it comes to certain things that have, affected your entire life. And so I'll open up a little bit. This is my podcast. This is me growing as an individual. This is me putting myself out there, being vulnerable. This is myself trying to figure out how to build my life and to grow as a person, just like I'm asking you to. What do we do to empower ourselves? This is an empowerment moment for me to discuss, but I will, because I want to make sure we understand this point. All right? You will find the light in every situation if you choose to. Even the worst of situations, you can take a positive way to look at it. I'll give you a couple examples. Here's one. So a little insight into my life. My brother passed away when I was 12 years old. It was crucial. It was devastating to our family. But for a period of time, I felt really angry at God, right? I was only in 6th grade. I was 12 years old. So I had a period, just like anyone will, when something bad happens, you're going to have a period where you're upset. You understand the negative. Your focus might be on that negative, but you find yourself out of that. And I'm going to give you an example of how I did. All right? At that time in life, I was angry at God. And so shortly after this happened, when I got to 7th grade, my parents decided to get my sisters and I baptized. And I never really thought much about baptism. Like, I just didn't know faith. We didn't go to church. We were never brought up going to church. We believed in God. We believed in Jesus, but we just never incorporated that into our life. So it's interesting. It's interesting that at this moment in my life, one thing that I realized was that getting baptized, it kind of pushed myself towards this concept of maybe I need to believe in God. Maybe I need to really put faith into God at that moment. And a big part of that was, to be able to find faith, to be able to find religion at such a young age. At 7th grade, when you really don't understand it, we didn't go through the whole process of how, Catholics go through and confirmation and all those things that my children just went through. I did it kind of backwards. We got baptized in 7th grade. So I just remember my godparents and looking up to them and seeing this is a relationship that, I can always look up to. They're just great people, amazing. And, just a little recap on that. They gave me a cross, for my baptism. And I started wearing that cross in 7th grade. And still to this day, it is wrapped around my neck. I wear it every single day of my life. And I'm 45 years old. From 7th grade till 45 years old, that tells you, how important it became to me. So I found God. I started shortly after baptism, end of 7th grade, I started going to church on my own. 13, 14-year-old going to church on their own every week. I remember the priest, Father Presta, he was amazing. He was a priest for my brother's funeral. I just remember, listening to him and really getting some guidance from him throughout. I also remember I'm the only kid that's in there without family. I'm the only kid that went to church throughout high school by myself. I incorporated some people to come with me at some point later on, but realistically, I did that for myself. That was a growth. That was me choosing to find God. And, that's difficult to understand, when you're really upset. And, can we find a light in every situation? If you can find a light in that situation, when you lose somebody dear to you, you lose somebody in your family, you see it destroying your family. Yeah, that's powerful things to think about. So that's one example. Another example for how do we find light? How do we choose the light, in our lives, instead of the darkness, instead of, that negative. Here's an example. My mom, a few years back, she was diagnosed with dementia. And so, it's a very, very awful disease. If anyone's ever dealt with it, I feel sorry for them. Most people have dealt with their grandparents having dementia at some point in life, and it's really awful because what you realize is that person doesn't become the person that they are. And when you realize that your own mother is not your mother anymore, she's somebody else's shell of who she is, it's a very hard thing to go through. And the process is awful. We see it slipping away. We see it going where sometimes they remember you, they don't. We see all the awful things that come with this disease, the memory being gone, the cycling back to childhood, things that exist that are so difficult to watch. Heartbreaking. And even at this point, as she's in a home right now getting care that she needs physically and mentally, obviously, she doesn't know who we are. She doesn't know any of us. And so in a short period of time, matter of a couple years, this has gone from fully functional to not functional. And it's probably the worst thing that you can go through, to understand that. But that being said, we go through horrible things in our lives. And, obviously I'm talking from a stance of who I am and how I feel, but can you imagine how she feels? Or does she feel? We don't know. We don't know these answers. We just know what exists. It's so difficult to talk about. It's so difficult to have a conversation about. But, the reason I have this conversation with you is because you start looking at, how can I look at such a horrible thing? Like most people in life, well, why does this happen to me? God, why did you do this? I mean, this is the number one thing that people will talk about anytime something horrible happens. You know, through church, through faith, through listening to my pastor, I see that there's no right answer for this. Like, nobody can tell you this right answer. But what we want to believe in is we want to believe in this idea that God has this plan, right? He has this plan for everyone. He has this plan for, my mom. He has this plan for my brother being gone from this earth at such a young age as 16. He has a plan, and we want to believe that. But why would God take, somebody that young? Why does he take babies? These are things that happen, and it's very, very upsetting to think about. But ultimately, we're not meant to understand. We're not at the capacity of what a higher being is. So when that comes to light for me, all I can think of is I have to choose the positive. I have to choose that there is some greater plan, that there is some reason for this. And one of the things that I have come to the conclusion of is some people, some experiences, some situations, some bad things that have happened are for the greater good of other people to learn from. And that's unpopular. That's hard to hear because people would give their lives for other people. But think about that for a second. Who did I become? As a person, who did I become because of these situations? Well, I'll tell you, with my mom's situation, it changed my life entirely. Right around that time, I started focusing on myself. I started focusing on my health, my mental health, number one. Therapy every week if I can, every other week, just for my own thoughts, for my own way to look at life, to help myself, because I'm investing in my mental health. People look at therapy differently. People look at therapy as like, oh, you need help. No, it isn't that at all. It's not that at all. Everyone could benefit from some sort of therapy. I'm a big component of life coaching. Obviously, you can tell with this podcast. But I also believe in therapy where you can find out your why. Therapy is a huge success for understanding why. Why does something exist? In any case, what I wanted to get into was this concept of I changed and focused on my mental health, which also led to me focusing on my physical health, which also, led to me making sure that I'm going to grow for the sake of my kids. They need me around, just like I need my mom around. My kids need me around. Whether they want to believe it or not, they do. And, that's something that we have to get into, understanding that we are so important for our kingdom, for our people, that we underestimate ourselves at times. Empower yourself with this ability to grow, to better yourself, not just for your own sake sometimes, but now to empower those around you. Lead by example, be a model. Understand that you can. And I haven't always been this way. And that's why I love this concept, because in the last 5 to 10 years of my life, I've done some serious changing mentally and physically, especially in the last 5 years when this happened to my mom, and helped me on the way. So what positive can I take from it? That. I can take that from it. Who have I become since my brother passed away? I became a protector. Anybody that knows me, I'm a protector by nature. But also understand that I live this life to make sure that I'm worthy. Worthy for my kingdom, worthy for my God. So really, really tough situations to talk about, but ultimately understand this concept of choosing the light is so important. We make these choices. Now let's get into some details about what this means to us. Well, how do you control your thinking, right? So I read this book, and I think it's a great book to read. Nothing superly interesting, but there are some great things that I've taken from this. It's called Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nagayan, I think his last name is. But it's thoughts versus thinking. So in this book, they define thoughts versus thinking. And it's interesting because I would always say, hey, they're the same thing, right? They're not anything different, but they're not. Everybody has thoughts. The sky is blue, that's a thought, right? So we start thinking about, well, what is the difference between thinking and thoughts? Well, thinking is when you take a thought and you elaborate. You start elaborating on that thought, and you start creating this narrative in your brain. And now this becomes something that is very uncontrolling. It starts steamrolling. It starts creating this big mess in your brain. And realistically, thinking becomes a negative thing. And so when we start thinking about this, thoughts versus thinking, how do we control ourselves enough to stop the thinking? Stop creating the narrative. So it's an extremely important concept. If you want to read deep into it, please read that book. I think it's a great one to read. But I want to give you an example of that. So here it is. It's raining outside. That's a thought. All of a sudden, thinking starts existing. Oh no, I forgot my umbrella. Oh no, I'm going to get wet. I'm going to ruin my hair. I'm going to ruin my new shirt. Traffic's going to be bad because everybody drives slow in traffic. And all of a sudden, all the negative aspects come out. There's your thinking. You know, your thinking will control your mind, and that hurts. And I want to get into some of that science that goes with that in a second here. But we need to understand this idea of we have to change how we think. We have to change this idea of stopping the narratives, stopping the thinking. So how do we go about this change? Once you evolve in accepting change and understanding it, you start to realize that stepping into getting outside of your comfort zone leads to growth and bettering yourself, learning from experiences. Now, here's my definition of change. Many people have heard me say this, and I think this is a great way to look at this, so I really want you to take this with you. Change doesn't exist by just saying, oh, I want to change. Oh, I need to change. It doesn't exist that way. What happens with change is this. You will never change anything in your life until you decide that whatever's behind you is scarier than what's in front of you. So let's give an example of that. I like to picture it like this. You're opening this door and it's empty on the other side. It's the abyss. It's a black hole. It's outer space. And you can't see what's out there. You don't know what's out there. That's change. You don't know what's out there. So what happens is you start looking at yourself and you go, wait a second, I'm not stepping into that. I'm not going to step into that. I don't want to make a change because I don't know. It's scary. Out there is scary. But then you look over your shoulder and then you say, oh, wait a second. Now that's scary. I know what that is, and I know how scary that is, so I'm going to change. So we could say, okay, I look over my shoulder, and I say, listen, I got to change my ways because I got diabetes and I might die. Or I have, not that you will die right away for that, but the idea is to say that you have something that you need to change for. Sometimes people wake up and say, hey, I'm 300-something pounds. I can't handle this. It's killing my health. It's killing my relationship with my kids. I can't play catch with my son. I can't. Things like that exist in real life. And that's scary for you. The embarrassment is scary. The things that exist in your life become scarier than walking into that change. So you make the change. You step into the abyss. That right there, that's some scary things to think about, but it's also a way to grow. You will never, ever grow without stepping into being uncomfortable. It's so important to be uncomfortable because that leads you to more experiences. It leads you to growing. It leads you to having conversations with people. It leads you to failing and getting back up again. It leads you into so many things that will be a benefit down the road. Maybe not initially, like we all want that initial gratitude right away. We have to go through the process. Change. So important. So it leads me to that concept. We need to start understanding that we have this new process called being comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you start conditioning yourself to start making changes, start trying new things, getting out of your own way, getting out of your comfort zone, like I keep saying about this podcast for me, when you start understanding that and you start becoming comfortable with making these decisions that are uncomfortable for you, I have so many now in this last couple of years, it's unbelievable to me. It's so scary. It's so scary to step into the abyss. It's so scary to make a change. But I have it because I've become uncomfortable. I've become comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's okay. You're going to make it. You have a confidence in yourself. You build yourself up. You're empowered. One day at a time. You can't see results right away. You're going to push yourself every single day. Get your ass up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the gym. Every single day you'll see a result. Put in work when you're there. Understand that you're going to eat right. It's okay. You can go without having the chips. If that's your case, if that's what you're looking for, health. I'm relating to that because that relates to me. But it's okay. Take one class at a time. Go back, get your degree. Go back, find and put your energy intentionally into something that's going to benefit your life later on in life. Understand change is necessary, that we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's called the definition of insanity. We cannot do that in our lives. We have to make change, vital to our entire lives. And this is why we make the change. Here is the science behind it. We are all programmed. Whether you know it or not, you are programmed. You are programmed from the womb till 7 years old. There is this program that exists in your brain that took place of you learning all the things you can from your family, from generations of family that have been passed down to you. You have taken on this program of what they believe, what they've tried, what they've done, what their creative side was. You have taken on this program, and that is who you are. It's crazy because 90% of our lives, we live in that program section of our brain. What's already been taught to us from the womb till 7 years old. How crazy is that to think about? That means 10% of the time, we are living in our conscious mind of being creative. 90% is our unconscious mind. All right? We have to start understanding being comfortable with the uncomfortable, like we talked about, because we have to start understanding that we have to change that program. That program is vital to who we are as people. Now, why do we have to change the program? Maybe you learned a lot of great things from your family. Maybe there's a lot of things that exist. Understood, right? We pick and choose. But we have to build this rapport with confidence to control our own thoughts and understand that we become the creator of our future thoughts. When we are programmed, we are using the thoughts and the creative side from other people that have passed it down to us. When do we actually become creative on our own? When do we as people decide to step out our comfort zone and try something we thought of? Not everyone else thought of, but we thought of, we came up with. Okay? We have to get out of this program, and think about the things that we want, our lives, our thoughts, our process, right? Not something that we were designed to follow when we were young. Being a creator of our own selves means endless possibilities and no limitations to what you can accomplish. You create it in your mind, and you change what's necessary to make it a reality. This smart doctor, his name's Dr. Bruce Lipton. If you can find him, it's great. Look him up. You can find him anywhere. He says the conscious mind has creativity. It's 10% of our brains that we're using, right? It's 10% of our thoughts, I should say. The other 90% is our unconscious mind. This is your program. It is what you've been taught. It's been passed down from family to family, the generations. Their way of thinking, their thoughts, their creativity, like I just said. This is their life. But 95% of our lives, we are thinking. Remember I just talked about thoughts versus thinking? If 95% of the times we're thinking and coming up with this narrative and these things, guess what we do? We go right back to the default, which is that unconscious, subconscious mind, right? The unconscious mind is your program that you were programmed from your family. 95% of the time we're thinking. That means that 95% of the time we're in our unconscious minds. That means 5% of the time we live in the conscious, creative mind. That's our own creativity, what we think of, what we really want. That's insane to me. The conscious mind is thinking, but it's not paying attention because it defaults back to that subconscious mind, right? Or unconscious mind, I should say. So 95% of the time we are living in this program. And remember, that program doesn't come from our own creativity, it comes from our families that they taught us. This is so eye-opening because it's what holds us back. Think about, why do we talk ourselves out of trying new ideas? Why? Why would we talk ourselves out of trying new ideas? Because we're going back to this program of someone else thought this and someone else believed in this, so we can't believe in it. Yes, you can. You can believe in your own. I want you to think outside your mind a little bit. This is what this led me to understand this. Let's think about this on a greater level. What if you change your mind to accept change? Think outside the program, tap into your own creativity, and then when you live your life, you model this for your family, your children, your relatives, the idea that change is good, that thinking on your own is good, that finding the positive in all situations, that controlling your thinking is good. What if that becomes their program for your next generation, for your kids, for their generation after, for the next generation? What if you change the program? What if you start by changing the way you think and these things where you tap into that creativity instead of that unconscious mind? You start changing this concept that kids are okay to think. They're okay to be creative. Look at our school system. It's awful. The school system is now, I work in the school system. Kindergarten is not meant for creativity anymore. Pre-kindergarten is not meant for creativity. It was back in the day. That's what it should be meant for, but it's not anymore. You know, everybody can talk about this concept of Montessori schools and things like that, but realistically, there's some faults to everything, but yeah, creativity comes into play. What if we condition their program to understand by the time they're 7 that it's okay to be creative, to take risks, to think differently than other people? Excuse me. What if their program is not just is to not just conform to what everyone else does, right? But to think and use their creativity at a young age. Open the door to their 95% of thinking, their program, guiding them to use their creative side as a norm. What if that becomes the norm now? I'll give you an example. Growing up, it was programmed in our family that we don't say I love you. It's actually a running joke in our family, my cousins, my relatives. It's a running joke. It's something that, you know, I was programmed to understand because I watched this from my parents, and I never felt like I wasn't loved. I never felt like this was something that my parents did against us. I felt like they always showed us love, actions, but they just didn't say, I love you. I don't remember it. Maybe they did at times. I don't remember it all. We never said it to each other as siblings, but it was something that ran in our family. And here's how I changed my program. I know the program. You know, me as an adult with my own kids, I know this program, but I won't follow it. I make sure I say I love you to my kids every single day. To me, it's important to have your words match your actions. And it's extremely powerful. Just like in any relationship, when your words match your actions, which we call integrity, we understand that it's hitting us from both ends. Okay? And when we do that, we can go forward and we can say to ourselves, hey, they truly love me, right? And I'm not saying that anything against my parents, because I believe 100% that they love me. They still show it to this day. My dad shows me every single time in his actions, you know. But I'm not scared to say I love you to my family, because I do. I love every one of them, my cousins, my aunts, uncles, my parents, my sisters, my entire extended family too. This is my kingdom. Of course I love them. Of course I'm here. But this is my way of changing this program. You know, going through and understanding all of these things that we're talking about today in this empowerment, I've changed my life to understand this is my life. I only get one of them, right? And moving forward, I'm going to spend my life understanding that I'm going to take on all of these things for myself to better empower myself to help those around me along with myself, right? I want to be the best version of myself. And I think everyone has that in them. It's just taking the steps, understanding change exists, understanding to control your thinking, understanding to stop the narrative in your brain. We talked about the two wolves. Hey, choose light and hope. Choose it. Find something in every situation that is a positive and focus on that. I've met so many great people throughout my life, so many in the last couple of years that have shown me this. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable when you step outside your comfort zone, you network with other people, you meet new people, you have new relationships, you learn so much. And that's a big part of you empowering yourself. Keep an open mind about this podcast, about anything you listen to, anything you talk to, any people that you go see. Open the door to taking risks, to go see other people, to go listen to people, to take in consideration what are they saying, because it can lead to you changing some thoughts. Read a book. I know I'm not a big reader when it comes to those things, but audiobooks are great. I'm a math guy. Logic. Some of these things are logical to me. Do you want to live in a negative manner, or do you want to live happy? Because what's the goal? Protect my kingdom. Everybody else's needs are met. They're happy. I provide that too with what I bring to the table. And now I'm happy. And I hope that everyone takes that from this. I hope they look at some of these examples and they see, and go out and do a little bit of research on your own. Go forward. I want you to truly start thinking about this concept of empowering your own self. Build with confidence. Build with confidence. I want to lead you with this one example. We talk about empowerment. And so a couple years ago, my son, I would sneak him into the gym. He was only 11 years old. I would sneak him in with me just because I loved the idea of him in the gym. Now, to this day, he's going to the gym on his own sometimes, 13 years old. I've showed him the right way. He loves it. My daughter's there with me now. All three of us are at the gym. It's such a great experience, to build our health together. But also understanding that a couple years ago, I told him, I said, we have to build people up around us. It's an important part of my life now. And we came up with this thing together where we said, hey, let's just make someone's day. For 5 minutes, just make someone's day. I mean, how hard is it for you to come up to someone, for 5 seconds, I should say, and give them a compliment? Just give a random stranger a compliment, not somebody you know so much. I mean, you could do that as well, obviously. But find someone that you don't know, you have no connection to, and pay them a compliment. And walk away. You're not there to get gratitude. You're not there to take credit for something, but you just want them to go the rest of their day remembering that you gave them a compliment. There's so many examples him and I have done. He's walked up so many. I'm so proud to any veteran, and thank you for your service. He's watched me model it. He's done it on his own without me saying anything. I mean, just unbelievable. The mere fact that we were in the gym one time, and I just remember this one lady. She was a pregnant lady. She's there every morning. I'm there every single morning. This is a couple years ago. She's pregnant. She's on the elliptical every single morning. I'm just in wow. I can't believe this lady's still here. She looks like she's going to pop. And I remember her being on a machine, and I just happened to walk up and said, you are a beast. You are unbelievable. I can't believe you're here. And she just lit up. And I said, have a great day. Didn't say who I was, didn't introduce myself, walk away. And we do this because we want them to feel something, right? Feel proud of themselves. Empower them to understand they're doing it, right? They're doing it. They're doing it on their own. They don't need anyone else, but man, does it help. Does it help to get a compliment? I remember her being gone a week later and being gone for maybe 3 weeks and then being right back at it. Unbelievable. Right? That's one example. I have so many. There's so many people in the gym that have come up to me and said things to me and complimented me on, what I'm doing, asking questions. I mean, I just absolutely am appreciative of so many compliments. I mean, even this podcast, to hear some of the things some people have told me, like, it's really, truly empowering for me. So to think going forward, if we can all take one step out of our day, one compliment a week. You know, my son and I used to try to do it once every 2 weeks. Like, you had to give a compliment to somebody and go find somebody that you would. I remember a grocery store giving a compliment. I remember a gym giving a compliment. Obviously, public areas doing these things. But the idea is watching him do it. Man, I'm empowering my kingdom. He's my kingdom. My daughter's my kingdom. You know, to empower them to go forward and push on this positive aspect to understanding people around you and building his own intrinsic value. Again, intrinsic value of how he feels about that. Wow. You want to talk about power? You know, gave him that empowerment. He gave me that empowerment by watching him. And, you know, take this. This is the end of the episode. Went a little long today. We're about 50 minutes in. I appreciate you listening. Be sure to follow if you'd like to. Be sure to comment if you'd like to. I really appreciate everything. Again, this is for me and my kingdom. So if you like to listen, I love it. If you don't, you know, I'm wishing you the best anyway. This is the end of episode 2. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.